Good morning, art historians. We're going to learn about Pure Land by Mariko Mori, 1998 Common Era. This is color photograph on glass. So you don't need to know you don't have to memorize the size of this. It's not a part of the identifying information, but that just helps give you an idea of how large the photographs would have been in one of her installations. So about 10 by 20 feet by 3/4 inches. Okay, so this is what she's known for doing. Mariko Mori creates multimedia installations. So multi is more than one, media is material. Using digital photography, right? It's a photograph of herself. She is the model, combined with computer generated images. So those little aliens are not photographed. Those are computer generated, added in there. Soundtracks, she's incorporating music into an installation. Video, so her photographs are stills from her videos. And she's also done installations where you would go and you would put on 3D glasses and there'd be 3D elements to her videos. Fragrance or a cool breeze. As you're standing there watching or looking at a photograph, a cool breeze would happen while you're watching Pure Land, or a fragrance would come out and having you smell something in particular. And overall, she's giving the viewers a sense of immersion into this imaginary world that she is creating. So she's trying to create this whole, using all of your senses as you are a viewer in an installation. Here's an example of what I was talking about. So the printed images, the photograph, that is one of our image in our image set. The printed images are stills from her videos. So there's some different ideas of what would have happened in that Pure Land video. So Pure Land comes from an installation that had 4 billboard-sized images on all 4 walls of a room. So this is context because it's something that we can't get just from looking at this. The images were then layered with thick sheets of glass. And then for content, each image represented an element or a part of this journey on your path to enlightenment. And this is what Buddhism is all about, is this idea of reaching enlightenment. How do we reach enlightenment? So the 4 elements or the path on the way to enlightenment is going to be air and life, fire and death, which when we learn about Buddhism, there's actually Hinduism, which comes first, and Hinduism is from India. So we have this sculpture that we're going to learn later in the year, that this is Shiva, the destroyer, dancing in a ring of fire. So this concept, think about forest fires. I know that sounds really tragic and sad, but we need forest fires so that there can be rebirth. So rebirth and earth is the next, and then water and dissolution. So here are some really blurry images that she wouldn't have been blurry. That was all I could find. But this one would have been for air. And then this is fire, right? Think about Shiva, the destroyer, surrounded by fire. These are all her. She's using her as her model, just like another photographer we're going to look at in our contemporary unit. And then here we have water and dissolution. And then our image, Pure Land, represents earth and rebirth. That's what she's depicting. It's almost like we're emerging out of the water. Also, you can think of the biblical story of the Great Flood, right? All right, then there's also the space that's in the middle of the room. You as the viewer, you need this space to then reach, it's important on your path to nirvana. You're trying to reach nirvana. That is the goal of Buddhism. Function. All right, so the whole idea behind this sort of installation is to create a meditative environment that provides you, the audience, with a sense of tranquility and transcendence. Again, this is relating back to this Eastern tradition of Buddhism. A little bit of context on her and her influence. She grew up surrounded by Japanese animation and loved this idea of cosplay. And if you don't know what that is, it's where people dress up, they transform themselves into their favorite anime and manga character. We still see this today. All right, so how is she incorporating familiar images? They might not be familiar to us, right? If they're more Eastern, from Asia, these familiar images from the past and from the present. And that relates to one of the themes that you're going to be writing an essay on, this I think it's essay number 6, is all about continuing and deviating from artistic traditions. So she's continuing this artistic depiction and how Buddha has been depicted. And she's also deviating. She's also combining some modern elements in there. So if you look at this sculpture from, I think it's the Amida Buddha, there's lots of different types of Buddhas. So on either side of Buddha, you have these celestial attendants who are sitting in a sea of clouds. And this is very typical in this type of Buddha depiction. Those celestial attendants are called Bodhisattvas. We're going to look at Bodhisattvas again later when we visit Asia and our Asian art unit. And they're not holding musical instruments here, but if you look at other depictions of Bodhisattvas, you can see they're standing now on these sea of clouds, these floating clouds, and they're holding musical instruments. They also all have that circular halo that goes around them. If you look back, there you go, the circular halo, circular halo, circular halo. All right, so how have her attendants, how are they similar and how are they deviating, right? So hers are these pastel colored alien figures. They are computer generated and they're incorporating elements of anime and manga. Remember, that's her pop culture. That's what she grew up with. Those are her influences. But similar, they're sitting in a sea of clouds, these floating clouds, and they're also playing instruments. And they look like Teletubbies. She's also referencing this Indian goddess. You don't need to write this. We've already got a lot. And this Indian goddess represents fertility, fortune, beauty. And you can see with her hands, she's also creating this symbol with her hand. And when you study different Buddhas, they're all doing these sort of gestures. And this is called a mudra. Like that's a mood. M-U-D-R-A is a mudra. All right, so she says, I am interested in circulating past iconography, images that we worship, into the present in order to get to the future. Done.